Welcome back to the Spectre of Anti-Blackness. I'm your host, and today we are talking about the Underground Railroad. This will be our final episode on the show, as we're at the final two chapters. So first we're going to be talking about, before we get into it, I do want to address one thing I've been receiving a lot of comments about. A bunch of people have been asking me, are you going to talk about the slap? No. So, chapter 9 is called Indiana Winter. This is the penultimate episode of the show, The Underground Railroad, and it is the concluding episode to the Indiana little plot line here. And is also the conclusion to a lot of different things in the story, which, let's go ahead and get into. Like the last episode, because I kind of liked how that one went. I feel like I addressed everything I wanted to for the most part. I didn't really think of anything like afterwards. And I also liked the length and all that sort of thing. So I did the quick little notation thing like I did that time. So the episode starts. Okay. The episode before this, Indiana Autumn, was like a very cheerful kind of what do they call those episodes where it's like a breather episode? It's in the middle of a tough episode and then another tough episode. This one, Indiana Autumn was a good one. But we got to get back into the story. We got to get back into, we got to wrap this thing up. So Indiana Winter starts with Ridgway because he is decidedly not dead. After he was not killed, saved by his little buddy Homer, which it is finally time to talk about Homer, but we'll get to that later. Yeah, so anyway, it's kind of, we're starting to, the seeds of doubt that were planted in previous episodes are now coming into fruition. So yeah, Ridgway is alive and well. I don't know if I call him well, but he's alive. And his father's dead, so he burns him. That's just, that's how the episode starts. Is there something significant there? Probably. I mean, he burns him in a forge, which is kind of weird. But his dad was a metal worker or whatever. But anyway, let's see, that's not really that important. Okay. There's a couple main things about this episode. All right. Cora is essentially trying to stay in Indiana because, she wants to stay there, but they have to have a vote in Valentine. I have to have a vote about her staying there. And there is one thing that I don't know how I got this mixed up last episode, but apparently I did. So I'm going to clear it up in this episode. So there are two leaders of Valentine. There is Mingo, who is a dark-skinned brother who was born a slave, bought his way to freedom, also bought freedom for his wife and his two daughters. This is the Black Excellence character, who's kind of like about the exclusivity and that sort of thing. He raises himself up from his bootstraps, and that's his kind of background. And then we have Valentine, who is the white passing guy. He's very light-skinned. What did I have written on him before? Do I still have those notes? Let me just go ahead and check that real quick because I actually don't remember. Yeah, so I had a little bit mixed up last time, and I don't know how that happened. The white passing guy, the light-skinned guy, he's not white abiding. He's not the white abiding entrepreneur. I'd actually throw all of those attributes onto Mingo, Black Excellence guy. So let's go ahead and get into that. So basically, uh, I guess we should just go ahead. All right, before we tackle that, I just want to hit the other stuff that kind of happened first. Let me see if any of this is important that I wrote down. Um, let's see, Ridgeway and Homer are back, looking for Cora, of course. Um, they're turned away by the crooked judge. Cora's starting to become accepting of her home. And then we have like this middle chunk, which I really appreciate in the episode, where it's kind of just like black folk being black folk. And that's why, people who don't see the show and they hear it's a slave show and they're like, oh, it's just the torture porn. Oh, it's just, seeing all the bad stuff. But this show, more than any show I can think of, at least right now, really excels at just showing black people in their element and just being themselves and being happy and being free. They have this nice corn shucking contest. Um, Also, I talked a little bit about, I think in the first episode, they do like these long shots of just like looking at a character or a person. They have this long shot of all of Valentine, every single person who lives there. It's this long take, just going down the line of all of their faces as they all look at the camera. It's very nice. They also have like this nice night of celebration. Everyone's just happy, engaging in revelry. You know, some of the people head out west because that's where they want to go. They don't want to stay in Valentine, because that's kind of like that's one of the main things that Valentine has a vote coming up. Are we gonna stay here? Are we going to let the white people into the business enterprise, which is what Mingo wants, or are we gonna head out west and try to get away from America, which is what Valentine wants? Valentine the person, I don't know. Valentine the place wants that. But anyway, so now we have a very important scene where Mingo is he's dealing with the white folks. They're playing maybe cards or something. He's just kind of talking with them, and it's important here because they're asking him questions about getting in on the Enterprise and stuff. And the one guy is like, "Oh, such a man of your stature. You're an excellent example of the black man. You really stand up above the rest." And he's like, "Nah, bro. Actually, I don't. Um, we're all like this. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm not better than anyone else on that farm. Um, we're people. I think that's what he's trying to get them to understand." Um, And he also tells them about because they're like, oh, they're trying to decide if they want to get in on the vote. He's like, yeah, we're trying to decide that too, which it sounds like they didn't like too much. Anyway, afterwards, he's talking with the judge, who's obviously on their side because he likes their wine. And he's like, bro, you should have let them win. You can't be going around parading how great you are, how equal you are to white people. And Mingo's like, I am though. Like I am great. I am equal to them. Like, and in that is the folly of his ideology. He's got this black excellence thought process of like, yes, we're as good as the whites, if not better. We're people. We're not. All this other stuff. You guys know the talk, the rap. But it's directly in contrast of what the white people want. But we'll get into that a little bit later. He goes home and he dances with his wife, and it kind of looks like he knows he made a grave error. Cora and Ridgeway, what? Cora and Royal, they have this really intimate moment together, and he holds her and like he feels the scars on her back, which is very, very emotional actually. But anyway, later in the episode, because I think that was during the night of celebration. I just remembered. I forgot to write it down. Um, they're talking though about she's got to plead her case to Valentine about why she can stay or whatever. And she brings up this point, which is also in contradiction to Mingo's ideology, but from the other end. She asks why they haven't bought up any black people. Royal says they've got enough money to buy her entire plantation of black folk and then some. And she's like, bro, why haven't you? And he's like, I don't know. And she's like, what good is the exclusivity? What good is the road if only special people can take it? Um, what good is Valentine if only special people can work here? You know, like it's a compelling argument. Um, we have this moment before the important night comes. Mingo and Valentine are both up. Neither of them can sleep, and they kind of talk a little bit. And Mingo's clearly having a rough go at it. Valentine's trying to bridge the gap though. Um, but clearly there's like a colorism thing that Mingo brings up, which is haunting him. He says, people look at Valentine and they see, it's hard for them to imagine that he's ever even been in chains. But they look at him and they can never even imagine him being free. Um, and Valentine's like, bro, yeah, that's why we have to go out west. That's why I have to get out of here. And then Mingo brings up a compelling and important point against Valentine's plan, which is who is the West for? You're talking about all this freedom and you're talking about all this like this land and this expansion. Who's that really for? Like, come on, man. Um, so then we have my favorite scene in the entire show, which is the debate. Mingo and Valentine are, and all of Valentine are in the church, or a lot of Valentine, maybe not all, but those who are gonna vote, I guess, are in the church, and Mingo and Valentine get up and they present their differing opinions. Uh, Mingo essentially argues that again he's on like the black excellence thing, like the people who are here deserve to be here, we're free. The people who are, then he talks about these people who can't respect themselves and can't fit in. It's too late for them. They can't be saved, and we can't try to save them. Um, Valentine rebuttals that we can try though, and we shouldn't have it. We should try to save everyone that we can. And sometimes what does he say? A something delusion is better than a useful delusion is better than a useless truth. That's what he says. Um, and then he goes on to talk about the different delusions that are present, that are ever present. Mingo talks about how white people aren't going to change overnight, and they have to be welcomed in, or they're going to basically destroy everything. Um, and he, what I think is another flaw in his perspective, he really overvalues the product that they make at Valentine, the wine. He's like, the white people know they can't get this anywhere else. We're useful to them. They need us. That sort of thing. Basically, he's like, we get them in the business. We can get rich off of this. I don't think his goal is richness. His goal is the self-sufficiency, of course, and to be free. But for sure, like, that's definitely going to be a byproduct of it. Um, he's trying to grow the enterprise. He's trying to, you know, do all that. And what he says is, he says, "Do you think that the white folk in the town are just going to endure our, what does it say, like impotence forever?" And as he says that, the white guys walk in, who he invited, the guys that he was like dealing with, he invited to come check out the vote. And so they're here. And everyone's kind of like alarmed, but they continue on. Um, yeah. Yeah, Mingo talks about entering into the community of America, entering into, the community with the white folks. He's like, we gotta slow down. We gotta, take things slow. We gotta play by their rules. Um, you know, abide by, reach accord with our neighbors, that sort of thing. Don't force their wrath. Yeah, it's heavy stuff. Valentine opposes the call for gradual change. He talks about, he's like, how can we close the door to those in need and open it to the people who are causing the need? What's that about? These how he's talking about how the white people operate, and he's like, they are going to, they're pillagers. You give them a little bit, and they're gonna try and take it all for themselves. And then his final point here is especially important. He talks about the nature of the African in America and how distinctly unique our experience and our existence is. And there's kind of really no model for it or for us and for the future. And he talks about Valentine, and he basically says, what we have here only we could do. Um, and not just like the wine, but like the everything about it. The communion, the like the whole black love and virtue of it. I don't know. Um, anyway, he says they can. Valentine is nothing. They can build it again. They can build it 100 different times because that's just what we do. And he'd rather burn it to the ground than to give it to them. And then he says a thing about if you give the white man a piece, he's coming for it all. And as he says that, that's when the attack starts, and all the white people start to they purge the town. They raze it to the ground. They open fire on the church. Both Mingo and Valentine are killed with a lot of other people, and the whole farm is sacked. The judge asks why, and he's sad, and I don't really know if he's sad because the people are dying or because he can't have his wine anymore. But the guy who kind of orchestrated it, he's like, you heard it from him yourself. He said, everyone here is like him. That's too many. That's too many men like him, which is precisely why neither of their points were gonna work. Which that's what we circle back to here. Mingo, who wanted to stay in league with the white folks, his plan was never gonna work because the the American imperative, as it's called later in the episode, is to what's the first word I'm looking for? Integrate, subjugate, or eliminate. And an equal black man and black woman, black family, black community is neither. It's none of those. Um, Integrating would be, losing the black identity. Subjugating would be, slavery. And then we all know what elimination is. There's no place in that plan for Valentine. or Tulsa or, any of these other places. So that's why Mingo being proud, which I'm not saying he was wrong for being proud and, you know, being like, yeah, I'm a human being and, I'm actually pretty cool and yeah, I'm equal to you, buddy. Of course, there's nothing wrong with that, but yeah, it's not gonna work out of the environment that he lives in. And it's for the same reason, but for like the other end of the American imperative, which is kind of dooming both of their ideologies. Valentine's plan to escape out west isn't going to work because, as we know today, that's no longer an option. That never was an option. Manifest destiny, bro. Like there's nowhere you can escape. Everything is theirs. Everything belongs to them. Eventually, there is nowhere to escape from. They're coming to escape to. Sorry, which is a point that Core brings up in another episode, previous episode, where she's like, "Are there any places to run to, or just places to run from?" You know. So as the sacking is going on, and we see the different, they're trying to fight back and all this other stuff. I had a couple different thoughts. One, the raiding party is huge and filled with what looks like all of the white people from the town, all the white men. And my first thought was the law doesn't matter, and because Valentine was completely legal. Yeah, they harbored some runaways in the past and that sort of thing, which is another, that's another thing on its own. But Valentine itself was completely within, it's a completely law-abiding place by all known accounts, and that didn't stop it from being torched. That didn't stop it from being ransacked and everyone being killed. The law doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what laws we vote for, because it's illegal to murder, and yet it keeps happening. Like yes, it is actually, believe it or not, police officers, for example, are not really allowed to just go around murdering civilians for no reason. And yet, here we are, which is, so, the whole argument of change the laws, vote, it's not really viable, is it? Not for real, true, sweeping change, which goes back to Malcolm X's speech, the Ballad of the Bullet. So we also have the people getting murdered all around, and Homer is following Ridgway, and you come to realize that Homer doesn't realize who he is as he's not only seeing these black people being murdered, but he's taken part in. I mean, he didn't like pick up the gun and shoot anyone, but he is in direct causality, I suppose, for it happening. He's played a hand in it, and it's just completely not fazing him that these people are dying, and it's partially his fault. So yeah, Royal's killed. Ridgway takes Cora. She kills him and escapes. And Homer mourns Ridgway. Ridgway dies, and he cries over his body. And that's when you realize, I mean, you've realized it many times up until this point, probably, but this is the end of Homer's arc, and it's truly encapsulated here that he can't be saved. He was brainwashed from a young age, and it's color isn't skin deep. Color is culture. Is my thinking of, is my ideology. It's something that I discovered a little while ago. I think that it's easy to get mistaken when you're on the road to trying to embrace your blackness, and color can throw you off because a lot, you might run into someone who is black, who is more colonized, who's more Western thinking than some white people that you meet. It's certainly possible. We also have those, I've experienced that. We also have those sayings like, not all skin folk, kin folk, that sort of thing. Um, and just because Homer is black, it doesn't mean anything because he's not really. He's African. He's of African descent, sure, but he's raised by Ridgway. Um, so yeah, that's the end of his story, and that's also the end of the episode. So yeah, let's just go ahead and jump right into the second one. This has been pretty long already. And finally, we have the final episode of the Underground Railroad, entitled simply Mabel. The titular character being Cora's mother takes up the first half of the episode. I actually don't have much to say about this one because the penultimate episode honestly wrapped up much of the show. But this episode does, I think, an important job of tying up the rest of Cora's story, specifically, as it is her story mainly. So we're flashed back to Mabel's time for most of the episode, and I won't really go through like a rundown as I did last time too much. I don't think. But essentially, we're told a brief little story about her final days on the plantation. She was a midwife as well as in the field, and so we get told this little story about this couple she was helping out, about a woman who had 3 miscarriages. The man that she's with, who is also an overseer, black overseer. And yeah, she's pregnant, and then she has a stillborn birth, which is upsetting to her. Mabel's taking care of her, and the main idea that I see being talked about here is are these people, our ancestors, they were still just people, and on top of being enslaved and terrible conditions, they still had to just be people. They had to go through miscarriages and, the pain of losing children and, difficulties in relationships and all this other kind of stuff. Mabel, after the stillbirth, on another plantation, a woman gave birth to 2 children, then she passed, which this all of course highlights just how difficult childbirth can be, especially in certain conditions, when you don't have the right care. It had to be especially hard for our ancestors, because they're not really looked at as people, and they're not, they could say, kind of like in today's society where women are widely ignored in the hospitals, when they're saying there's something wrong or they're in pain and that sort of thing. those ideas are also highlighted here. Um, anyway, so the two children are given to this young couple to because she still has she's got milk in her breast, so they want her to feed the children. And Mabel can sense that something is wrong. It is implied that the woman has what's it called? The thing, the thing. The thing. I can't. Sorry, guys. It's late. I'm tired. Um. Anyway, but Mabel is instructed that she can no longer help because she's got to get back in the fields and all that kind of thing. Um. Which is difficult for her because she knows that something is wrong. And it's revealed to the young woman that of course she probably already knew this, but in her time of strife and hurt, she and the man she's with, of course, is elated, and now there's these babies that they can take care of. They're in this delusion that these babies are their own, and she's like, oh, he's gonna marry me now. We're gonna have more babies, which she's failed to do at this point. And it is she's been snapped back into reality that, like, right when these babies are able to stand on their own, they're getting sold off. Like, they're not your children. And so she is it postpartum depression. So yeah, she is she kills herself and the babies. Which of course is tragic for everyone involved. And the man is then whipped, which is like, could you imagine if you're... These people were not perfect, I'm sure he made some mistakes, but he's not like a bad guy. And yeah, he's caught in probably the worst sorrow he's experienced thus far, and he's gotta be whipped because he failed to keep them alive, and or whatever. So in her pain, as she has to go clean up the mess, Mabel just begins to walk just off the plantation, and then she realizes, oh shit, I'm Cora. I gotta go back for Cora. And she gets bit by a snake and she dies in the swamp. And Cora and everyone else thought that she ran away, and Cora thought she was abandoned when honestly her mother's last act was trying to go back and retrieve her and be with her, if not take her with her. I mean, who knows what was going to happen. I for one believe she would have stayed. I don't think the chances of her actually making it out there were high, or at least she probably didn't think they were. She seemed to just be grief stricken, which led to her departure. But yeah, now Cora has all of this pain and grief around her mother, and she's hate-filled about her almost, and yeah, it's unwarranted. This can be interpreted different ways. What I kind of saw was that her mother represented this couple of idealisms, I'll say. This form of escape from the oppression, and home as well, Africa. This idealized version of we can go back to this other beautiful, wonderful thing. Not to say Africa isn't great, it is. It's awesome there. Um, but it's not incorrect to say they've gone through their own problems over the last 400 years. Um, Different though, but quite similar problems. Um, the other side of imperialism and colonization they experienced over there. Um, so yeah, the situation isn't much better in some fashions. In others, it is, and then we've also got better over here in other ways. That's what I connected to personally. But yeah, it's also I think the more on the nose, the more probably implied or uh, whatever. The more implied idea is that this pure idea of escape, that she's the one who made it out and she's living in this paradise. She's out there. That didn't really happen. So the story wraps up. I don't know how the book ends. But we got the story is coming to a close. Cora and the little girl she escaped with are taken out west. They go out west with a guy they met on the road, Mr. Ali, and that's it. That's the Underground Railroad. Through this show, we've seen a lot. I hope all of that was able to be heard, because I don't feel like going back and recording it. But we saw a lot of the past issues that have happened with our people, not only in slavery but in the times afterwards. Reconstruction era, Jim Crow era, Civil Rights era, and even now. We saw a lot of the issues. We saw in South Carolina, it kind of alluded to like the Tuskegee experiment with the men being poisoned purposefully, and the women being forced into sterilization. You think about organizations like Planned Parenthood, which are, have the racist foundations or what have you. You have the ideas of the final solution and that sort of thing, like in Nazi Germany, which are a little more prominent today than you would hope, and in North Carolina, where they've completely outlawed being black and have killed all the black people. You have the tribute to the lost ancestors, to the lost folks who didn't make it across in Tennessee. You've got a rousing speech, right? A good summation of again, what is called the American what is it called again? The American Imperative by Ridgway, where he talks about either the integration, subjugation, or elimination of all others and of manifest destiny. We see ideas that were prevalent in the civil rights era and are still prevalent today about where do we go from here as black people in the situation that we're in, that it doesn't seem the system wants us out of, and it doesn't really provide much of an answer, and I don't fault it for that, because if there was a perfect answer, I mean, we'd have done it already, right? It poses questions though, and it's attempting to start a conversation, I think, which is good. Attempting to bring light to a lot of situations and an allegory and that sort of thing. We're also shown, like in Tulsa and in other places, the all black community, the thriving community, which is of course torn down as it doesn't fit within the narrative that is America. Um, and I think those are the main points that are touched on in this show, in these 10 episodes here. Uh, so yeah, we're done with this deep dive with this little mini series. I'll open up the on Spotify. There will be an option that you can it'll be like a question thing where I ask a question, you can do answers, but it's just gonna be like, any questions, comments, or concerns about the series, and maybe I'll address them in the next whatever's coming next. What is coming next? I don't know. We'll see. Might take a little bit of a break. I don't know. But yeah, it was a good series. I hope I got some people to watch it. I hope I helped some people to understand some things about it if they've already seen it. Start some conversations, perhaps. That'd be also kind of cool. Yeah, I brand this a watch. Definitely check this out if you haven't already. Spoilers, by the way, if you haven't seen it. Definitely go do that first. I don't know why you're listening to this, but yeah, let's kind of wrap it up. Uh, Thanks for tuning in. I do appreciate it. There's I do art. Check that out. I'm kidding. Yeah, so there's I hope that what's new? Work brain. Um, hmm. This is tough. How do I do these? Oh, okay. I hope if you come into a situation where something is about to fall, like a glass or maybe like a window or a something ceramic, you catch it right in time. It's always a nice feeling. Anyway, enjoy life. It's not promised. Good night, or no, that good night from me. Say good night to me if you want. I'd appreciate that. Thank you. And you good whatever time it is for you. 6:32, 1:14, something like that. Anyway, yeah. I'm going now. I'm going to bed.